The drama surrounding the Cleveland Browns has reached a boiling point. And this time, it isn't just about on-field mistakes or questionable coaching decisions. It's bigger, deeper, and more explosive than anything fans could have anticipated. At the center of it all stands NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, a man who usually works behind the curtain but has now stepped into the spotlight with a message so direct that it has sent shockwaves through the league. His demand? That Cleveland's ownership and leadership stop dragging their feet, stop hiding behind excuses, and give Shedeur Sanders the opportunity he deserves. For once, the commissioner is not mincing words, and the ripple effect could change not only the Browns' season, but also the very integrity of the NFL. For months, the Shedeur Sanders saga in Cleveland has been simmering. On the surface, it seemed like a standard quarterback controversy, a young, highly talented player waiting for his chance while the veterans and coaches insist he isn't quite ready. But beneath that surface, the whispers grew louder. Why was Sanders one of the most dynamic quarterback prospects in years? Son of Deion Sanders and a proven leader, continually being sidelined? Why was his talent being overlooked, his leadership ignored, and his chance delayed? Fans saw it, analysts pointed it out, and eventually, even the players around him began to question why a quarterback capable of sparking a franchise was still holding a clipboard. Roger Goodell had seen enough. In his annual league meeting, usually filled with dry discussions about finances, TV deals, and minor rule changes, Goodell let it be known that this was different. With his voice carrying a mixture of frustration and conviction, he made clear that complacency would no longer be tolerated. This wasn't just about the Browns' depth chart. This was about systemic issues, about fairness, and about what it meant for the NFL to call itself a league of integrity when decisions were being driven by hidden agendas instead of performance. According to insiders, Goodell privately confronted Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, delivering a blunt message. The situation with Shedeur Sanders had become an embarrassment, and it was time to make it right. Goodell emphasized that failing to give Sanders a fair shot wasn't simply a football decision, it was a moral failure, one that risked tarnishing the league's image. He reportedly told Haslam that if the Browns continued to stonewall Sanders' progress, the league itself could face backlash, not just from fans but from players, media, and sponsors who are already scrutinizing how opportunities are handed out in the NFL. This wasn't idle talk. Goodell signaled that the league was prepared to investigate why Sanders had been allowed to slide so far in the draft. Despite being widely regarded as first-round talent, he made it clear that the Browns' handling of him since then only added fuel to the fire, raising uncomfortable questions about whether biases, politics, or worse were at play. In one of his sharpest moments, Goodell reportedly described the situation as sabotaged, the deliberate stunting of a young quarterback's career for reasons that had nothing to do with his ability to play the game. For Sanders, this must have felt like both vindication and frustration. He has carried himself with confidence throughout this ordeal, insisting that he's more than capable of competing with and surpassing many starting quarterbacks in the league. He hasn't been shy about it either. He's looked straight into cameras and declared that his play speaks for itself, that his leadership cannot be denied, and that all he needs is the opportunity. Watching veterans like Joe Flacco stumble through disastrous outings while he sits on the sideline has only deepened his belief that something deeper is holding him back. And now, with Goodell's intervention, it seems the highest office in football agrees, but the commissioner's move is about more than one player. To Goodell, this is about credibility. How can the NFL claim to be the pinnacle of competitive sports if a quarterback, who's proven himself at every level, isn't allowed to compete fairly at the next? How can fans trust the league if talent takes a backseat to politics, ownership preferences, or outdated biases? Goodell has built much of his career defending the shield of the NFL, sometimes controversially, but in this case, he appears to be going on offense. By demanding that Sanders be given his rightful chance, he's making a statement not just to Cleveland, but to every franchise. Fairness is not optional. The draft remains one of the sorest points of this saga. Goodell openly criticized the fact that Sanders, a clear first-round prospect, was allowed to slip all the way to the 5th round. He insisted there was no legitimate football reason for it and suggested that hidden motives had interfered with the process. To him, this wasn't a simple oversight. It was evidence of a systemic failure that had to be corrected. And he vowed to find out how it happened, who was responsible, what conversations were had, and whether decisions were made in bad faith. He promised accountability, no matter how uncomfortable it might be for team owners. For Browns fans, this situation is almost surreal. A team that has been searching for quarterback stability for decades might finally have a generational talent sitting on their bench, yet they've chosen to stick with a revolving door of struggling veterans. The frustration has boiled over in the fan base, with chants for Sanders growing louder every week as mistakes pile up on the field. Now, with the commissioner himself taking their side, fans are more energized than ever. It's no longer just about what Sanders might do. It's about the principle of giving him the chance to prove it. But Jimmy Haslam and the Browns organization are now in a corner. Goodell's words were not suggestions, they were directives. The commissioner reportedly told Haslam that ownership is a privilege, not a right. And with that privilege comes the duty to uphold fairness and integrity. If the Browns continue down their current path, they risk not only alienating their fans, but also drawing direct action from the league office. Goodell has the power to make life very uncomfortable for any owner who refuses to align with the league's values. And he's shown before that he's willing to use it. Critics argue that Goodell may be overstepping, that forcing owners' hands could create divisions within the league. But supporters say this is exactly the kind of leadership the NFL has lacked for years. By confronting bias and entrenched power dynamics head-on, Goodell is making it clear that he values the future of the league more than appeasing its wealthiest owners. And at the center of that battle stands Shedeur Sanders, a young quarterback who has become the face of a much larger conversation. Goodell has also tied this issue to diversity. He knows that black players have carried the NFL for decades, yet when it comes to leadership positions like quarterback, they've often faced extra scrutiny and higher hurdles. Sanders' treatment, in his eyes, represents a painful reminder of that imbalance. If the league is serious about equality, then moments like this cannot be ignored. To let Sanders be sidelined despite his talent would send the message that little has changed. For Goodell, the cost of silence is too high. Still, the road ahead is uncertain. Will the Browns cave to pressure and give Sanders his shot? Will Haslam acknowledge the mistakes and publicly commit to correcting them? Or will Cleveland try to weather the storm, hoping that the noise dies down and the commissioner eventually moves on? Those are the questions that hang over the franchise now. What's undeniable is that the eyes of the league are watching. And Sanders' moment of truth could arrive sooner than anyone expected. The stakes are enormous. If Sanders gets his chance and thrives, Goodell's intervention will be hailed as a turning point, the moment when the league chose fairness over politics and changed the trajectory of a young star's career. If he struggles, critics will accuse the commissioner of meddling, of putting pressure on a team and a player before the time was right. Either way, the Browns can no longer hide. Their next move will define not only their season, but also their reputation. In the end, this is about more than football. It's about what the NFL wants to be. A league where merit and talent determine opportunity, or one where hidden agendas and outdated biases still hold sway. Roger Goodell has made his choice. He's chosen to stand with Shedeur Sanders with fairness, with the idea that the NFL cannot afford to let politics dictate the future of its stars. Now it's up to the Browns and every other team to decide where they stand. So what do you think about Roger Goodell's intervention in the Shedeur Sanders controversy? Do you believe the commissioner's actions will bring real change? Or is this just a temporary stance meant to save face? Do you think ownership should be held accountable for the way draft decisions and opportunities are influenced behind closed doors? And most importantly, do you agree that Sanders deserves the starting role now? Or should Cleveland wait before handing him the reins? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories from inside the NFL's most dramatic moments.